Good morning, everyone. I want to thank you so much for joining us for today's event, Eat, Sleep, Thrive, Curating the Science and Nutrition on Sleep Health. My name is Charles Plackett, and I'm the founder and director of the Center for Food as Medicine and Longevity. The Center for Food as Medicine and Longevity is an international nonprofit dedicated to bridging the gap between traditional medicine and the use of food as medicine in the prevention, treatment, and management of disease. We work to increase access to these interventions, advance research, and create a more equitable food system that improves health outcomes around the globe. We are incredibly fortunate to be joined by three of the most respected experts in the field of sleep. Our distinguished panelists include Dr. Arman Arab, who is a researcher at the Division of Sleep Medicine at Brigham and Women's Hospital at Harvard Medical School. His work explores the impact of circadian rhythms and meal timing on sleep and metabolic health. Dr. Michael Grandner, Director of the Sleep and Health Research Program and Behavioral Sleep Medicine Clinic at the University of Arizona College of Medicine. He's one of the world's leading experts on the bidirectional relationship between sleep and nutrition and how sleep health affects real-world dietary behavior. Dr. Marie-Pierre St-Onge, Director of the Center for Excellence for Sleep and Circadian Research at Columbia University, Irving Medical Center, and Associate Editor of Sleep Health. She is also the author of the book, Eat Better, Sleep Better, which offers a practical science-backed guide to the diet-sleep connection. I'm very pleased to also be joined in moderating today's conversation by Alexina Cathern. She is a very close friend, a longtime colleague. She's the Director of Policy and Special Projects at Wellness in the Schools and serves on the advisory boards of both the Hunter College New York City Food Policy Center and the Center for Food as Medicine and Longevity. Please make sure to not interrupt us if you can. And also, we're going to go right into the first question. Since time is short, we keep our seminars and events down to 1 hour precisely. So we're going to open up with our first question. And the first question is about TikTok. Okay. So, and I know that we're all familiar with social media, and we take a lot of our advice through social media. So platforms like TikTok have been popularized. They popularize sleep supplements, food-based remedies, from Sleepy Girl mocktails like tart juice and magnesium to lettuce water, moon milk, and sleep soups. Which of these viral trends actually has scientific merit? And what do we need to do with so much information that's out there now? We're kind of in an information overload. How do we distinguish the scams from someone selling us something, and the safety issues around these things? I know this is a loaded question, but I'm going to open it up to the panel, and feel free to jump in as soon as Alexina sort of adds to that question or layers it. Alexina?
No, I'm going to turn it over to our amazing panelists. I'd love to hear. I don't have any of my Sleepy Girl mocktails, so I want to hear from them about what's behind all the TikTok trends.
So there's always a little bit of truth to those TikTok trends, right? And the Sleepy Girl mocktail is one where there's the most research that supports it, in my opinion. There's quite a bit of research related to tart cherry juice, and how that influences sleep quality and sleep architecture, as well as sleep circadian physiology through improvements in melatonin levels. And also there's research backing magnesium related to the Sleepy Girl mocktail. That's within the Sleepy Girl mocktail. So there's quite a bit of science to support that the ingredients that are in this mocktail could have a benefit for sleep. I've been also asked to comment about the lettuce water TikTok, which I thought was quite interesting. Actually, when a reporter called me for this specific TikTok, I hadn't seen it myself, and watching it and looking for the research to support that, I thought was quite interesting. And as I said when I started my explanation, that there is always an element of truth. And in the case of lettuce water, there are some studies in rodents showing that bitter lettuce extracts lead to sleep. But those are bitter lettuce extracts. They're alcohol extracts. They're not water extracts. And to go to your question about what should we be thinking of, what should we be wary about? Well, this one video is one of them where this person drinks the lettuce water and immediately feels like she's going to fall asleep. And I think that's where we should all start to question whether there's some truth to that, because there's always a process in terms of absorbing nutrients and the onset of sleep, where eating something, drinking something will not instantaneously, at least in my opinion, make you fall asleep. So that's already one item there to kind of think of.
You know what? It scares me though that people are looking. You know that maybe someone who's it's hard to talk about intelligence levels or things like that, but that sees a study, okay, and then makes a determination and spreads this word, and they can point to this study. Hey, look at this! This is a study, and it says that this happens. And not only is it a study, but it's a review, and this review is looked at 2,000 studies, and oh my God, if you drink milk with lettuce water and magnesium and an Ambien, you're going to sleep. You know, and I think that, you know, these kinds of things that create that magic bullet scare the heck out of me because of safety reasons, and not just because I'm, you know, a scientist, but also because I'm a public health advocate. I certainly don't want people to take things, you know, that are going to actually hurt them. Now, there's a big placebo effect, obviously, in some of these things. If you think they're going to help you sleep, they might help you sleep. But I want to open it up to Michael and Armand, see if they have any thoughts on this.
And Dr. Palatkins, I think when there is evidence, when we compare placebo to no treatment, placebo is much more effective than no treatment. So it doesn't mean that all of these foods or therapies that are trend on TikTok, there is no scientific background or truth about that. As Dr. Sanaj mentioned, it means that we need to do more research on them to find out which one is truly effective and which one is not effective. I think for example, tart cherry juice, we have maybe more evidence compared to other ones like lettuce, or some of them are from home-based therapies, some things that our mothers recommended, and I think from the word of mouth passed to other nations, other generations, and find out in TikTok. I think we need to do more research on them. But from all of these TikTok trends, I think tart cherry juice is one of the most maybe
Really?
studied one. We need more study to assess its efficacy more and more. But
Right.
I think compared to all of them, it's more effective.
And Michael, 1 second. What about a warm glass of milk? I mean, that was kind of what you always used to see in the old movies, right? Just why and does it work, Michael?
I mean, from the glass of milk question, I'll push that to Marie Pierre. She wrote the paper on diet or
Right,
dairy and
right.
sleep anyway.
Yeah.
You would know better than anybody.
Yeah, there is definitely there's research to support an influence of dairy products for sleep and improved sleep quality. But I guess also, like Dr. Arab was saying, there's more research that's needed. Some of the populations in which some of the studies have been done are not necessarily people who have sleep difficulties, and then it becomes very difficult to decide whether those will improve sleep in people with sleep difficulties. And if people don't have sleep difficulties to begin with, how can we lead to improvements in sleep? Something else that I want to comment related to Dr. Arab's comment related to recipes passed on from generation to generation is this concept of culture, and also these feel good type of situations, right? So this was something that your parent passed on to you. It's soothing, it's relaxing, it's something familiar. You have that before going to bed. It helps with the whole process of winding down. So that also can contribute to people's perception of better sleep when they're consuming some of these products and some of these beverages that have this long history of this long cultural history.
So my 2 cents on this is that this exists for a reason. These TikTok trends, they exist for a reason. There's a lot of social reasons why they exist, but from a sleep perspective, sleep is universal. Everybody sleeps, and it's something that everybody can relate to. but yet it feels slightly out of our control, especially in our current society, which sees sleep as an unproductive use of time, and we're trying to maximize and optimize and get by on as little sleep as possible, or find a way to have sleep more under our control. And that desire for control, imagine if we have similar things to like control appetite or control other things that aren't really totally under our conscious control. So we want that control, and we feel like we should have that control. And so what is it that can cause it? Well, sleep is natural, food is natural. These are things that I can go out to the store and buy something. I can do something. And there's something within. So as a behavioral sleep medicine practitioner, there's a saying in our field that says, what works to fix insomnia sometimes? Everything. Everything works sometimes. Spin around 3 times before getting into bed. That will work sometimes. Because, and this is why there are huge placebo effects in sleep studies, which is why you need placebo controls or even washout periods, because not only do we have the belief that we're doing something to improve our sleep will improve our sleep. The focus, thinking about our sleep and thinking about, oh, maybe I should be doing stuff, will improve our sleep. Feeling like what we're doing might work helps us let go and surrender a little bit, which then helps us sleep. And not only that, sleep ebbs and flows. And so if you ask someone with insomnia, how's your sleep? Oh, bad. How often is it bad? Every night. Every night? Okay, well, let's just track your sleep. Then all of a sudden they find it's not bad every night. Oh, tracking worked, helping me sleep better. I mean, maybe it did by giving insights, but you're now seeing that actually maybe you're not sleeping that bad all the time because you're paying attention to it. So all of these elements, these psychological and behavioral elements that have absolutely nothing to do with food or nutrients or any of those pathways, could be a reason why a lot of these foods could be linked to better sleep. I mean, anything that gets out of the way is probably fine. And then so that's why we have to disentangle what is actually helping versus what is doing nothing and helping by at least not doing anything, and putting your attention there. But I also want to point out something that Dr. St. Onge said, which was really important, is that sleep isn't like bad or good. Like there's some people who get less sleep and want to sleep more, but they don't have time, or they're trying to sleep at an inappropriate time. They need to get up too early, so they're trying to go to bed at a time that's too early for them. So it's like trying to eat dinner at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. A lot of people aren't going to be hungry. There's nothing you can do to make yourself hungry at that time, because it's the wrong time. I mean, you can eventually, but it's not naturally where you are. For some people, it's about sleep quality. For some people, it's about feeling refreshed in the morning, or irregularity, all these other dimensions of sleep health. And sometimes it's a sleep disorder. Sometimes they have insomnia disorder. Sometimes they have undiagnosed or diagnosed sleep apnea. And so lettuce isn't going to cure sleep apnea or an insomnia disorder. And even there's actually, to my knowledge, there is no nutritional product that is an effective treatment for an insomnia disorder. That doesn't mean there aren't nutritional products that can help you sleep better, but there's a difference. It's like something can elevate your mood without being a cure for clinical depression. And I think in people's minds, these concepts are sort of fuzzy and blend together. Maybe the reason something doesn't work is because you're not the right person for it, because you actually need a medical treatment as opposed to something to support your natural functioning.
That's very interesting. Thank you, doctor. So it's funny because you were saying something about sleep, and I was thinking about my wife, who every morning when we get up, I go, "How do you sleep?" She goes, "I didn't sleep." And I watch her sleeping because I sleep 4 or 5 hours a night, and I see her sleeping mostly. And she goes, "I just didn't want to acknowledge. I thought I'd go back to sleep if I didn't say anything." So a timer or a device would work great for her because it could prove to her that she basically is sleeping 9 to 10 hours a day. So I think the placebo effect is very powerful. So swinging back to TikTok and some of these social media trends. they do have some weight because there is a placebo effect and so forth. But let's try to get into some of the details. Yeah, sorry.
But no, you bring up something very interesting there,
Yeah.
where your wife says that she didn't sleep at all, right? But meanwhile, you say you've seen her sleep,
Yeah.
right? So
The
there's
snoring gives it
That's
away.
that's what I was gonna say. It's the snoring.
there's
That's
sometimes this
common.
disconnect, right? There's sometimes a disconnect between how you feel you've slept and how
Yes.
objectively your watch will tell you you slept. So maybe it appears that she's sleeping throughout the night, but it's a very light stage of sleep. Maybe she's in and out of sleep a lot. Maybe, there's all these different, Dr. Greiner was talking about different dimensions of sleep. There's different dimensions of sleep that makes it so in the morning, she doesn't feel like she's had good sleep. And so no matter what happens or what happened the night before, her outlook that day is that she's had bad sleep the night before. And
Mhm.
that's important and that's relevant. And that's why when we do our research, it's tremendously important to consider both objective measures of sleep that we can track with various devices, but also track individuals' perception of how they slept, because that really portrays and lays out their outlook on the rest of the day and can have an influence on their psychological well-being, their cardiometabolic health,
Yeah.
and their functioning throughout the day.
So with that, I read this study, which was, of course, really, and again, I just prefaced before in the beginning discussions about one study doesn't make for state of the science, but when it supports what you do, then you're very excited about it and you want it to be state of the science. So there was a study about melatonin and high levels of melatonin, like 3 milligrams, and we'll talk about melatonin because I don't know if you know, Judy and Richard Wortman were friends of mine, and they were the ones that had the patent, I believe, on 1 milligram and under. I used to talk to them about melatonin all the time. But just with melatonin, it said that with shift workers, that melatonin at 3 grams would basically help to reduce the impact of a lack of sleep or a disrupted sleep that it would have on you. So it gave me hope because I have disrupted sleep, and it gave me hope. And then also creatine also seems to have some sort of reparative effect on crappy sleep, basically. Have you heard of any of those two? I mean, the melatonin study just came out, but I'm sure it's based on there's other scientific literature that looks at melatonin, not just to help you sleep,
Yeah.
but to repair damaged sleep.
So melatonin is often misunderstood. Melatonin works essentially by at least the way we're conceptualizing it around sleep and circadian, does other things too. But from a sleep perspective, the way it works is it tells your body it's nighttime. That's what it does. Your pineal gland secretes it in the evening, and within about 2 hours from its onset is about the time that you're probably going to sleep. And it peaks during the night and drops off right around the time it's expecting you're going to wake up, bottoming out for most of the day. There's very low circulating melatonin in your body during the day. It is a nighttime signal. It has no sedative properties whatsoever. Zero. To the point where if you give melatonin to a nocturnal animal, it wakes them up because it is a nighttime signal, not a sleep signal. So it doesn't make you tired. It doesn't make you sleepy. It doesn't do any of those things. It tells your body it's nighttime. The degree to which that information is useful to your body to put you into more of a sleep state or protect a sleep state, melatonin can be very useful. And in terms of its use, that's why taking melatonin for things like shifting your sleep and jet lag and things like that, and shift work is really useful because the information of when it's nighttime might be inconsistent with the external world. Because light, no matter what time of day it is, light will suppress melatonin. As soon as light hits the eye and goes to the retina sends a signal to the clock that's in your brain that, among other things, says, whatever time of day it is, if you're making melatonin, stop. And then it'll recover again if the light goes away. But light suppresses melatonin because in the morning when the sun comes up, no matter where you were in your biological night, you'll start your day. You'll reset the day in the morning. That's why morning light is so important. B12, by the way, helps light suppress melatonin. Things like B6 and magnesium help your body produce melatonin and tryptophan. Tryptophan becomes serotonin, which becomes melatonin. Tryptophan is the raw ingredient that your body uses to manufacture melatonin. That's one of the reasons why, that is probably the reason why it has most of its sleep-inducing effect. But that's what melatonin is. That is why, first of all, it can help people sleep at a time when their body isn't used to sleeping because it's telling your body it's nighttime at a different time. That's also why it is useful in, for example, older people, especially older people who are taking medications that suppress melatonin, like beta blockers, because you're sort of doing a hormone replacement. Because as you get older, you produce less melatonin often, not all the time, but often. And sometimes you can have very little, and that may be part of why your sleep could be shallow when you're older. Maybe.
Dr.
Yeah.
What dosages are we talking about when you're speaking of this?
So yes,
in your
right,
head?
and so I'm going to get to that in a second because
Yeah.
that really matters. And then, so the last thing I was going to say was, but that's also why there's a paradox in terms of just general sleep improvement, in terms of helping you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer and more solidly during the night. Is that yes, it does help with that, but the worse your sleep is, the less it helps. Because people with insomnia, their body knows it's nighttime, they still can't sleep.
Let's rewind a second. Say that. Oh, that's
Right.
very important. Can you say that again?
Right.
please?
Right. So that's why so melatonin can help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer and get better and feel better sleep quality and have fewer awakenings. But the worse your sleep quality is, especially if you have an insomnia disorder, melatonin not only doesn't beat placebo at all for insomnia disorder, it is almost universally ineffective for insomnia disorder because people with insomnia, their body knows it's nighttime. They still can't sleep because they have activation where it doesn't belong. That's why they're exhausted at night. Their body is trying to tell them that it's nighttime and they still can't sleep. For those people, melatonin is ineffective. For people with more mild sleep problems or people who sleep generally okay, but have some issues, melatonin can be extremely helpful. And so that's where you bring up the dosages. The doses are often all over the map if you look at the store shelves. However, if you talk to a sleep or circadian researcher, a normal dose of melatonin that they talk about is like a half or a third of a milligram. If you take a blind person who cannot see light and can't get an internal rhythm of when is day and when is night, a third to a half a milligram of melatonin in the evening that sets the clock for them and tells their body it's nighttime where you want it, that does the trick. That's all their body needs to sense time is a very low dose like that. And if you want to fall asleep faster by shifting your nighttime a little earlier, there's almost no difference between half a milligram and say what we would call a high dose of 3 milligrams. There's almost no difference, except the half milligram, the 3 milligrams works a little better at around, the closer you get to to sleep onset, the 3 milligrams will work a little better. 5 will also work a little better, a little if you're taking it like within a half an hour or an hour before going to bed. More than that is you've got massively diminishing returns in terms of sleep. What you're more likely to get is more daytime grogginess because you still have it. If you're already producing melatonin and then you dump a whole bunch of exogenous melatonin in your body, by the morning you might still have a lot floating around. So often, when I have people who are taking it, I'll say, look, fine. If you want to take a 3 or a 5 in the evening, not necessarily shift yourself a lot, but give yourself a little more of that sleep push. But you feel groggy in the morning, cut your dose in half. And if you're still feeling groggy in the morning, cut it in half again, because you're probably taking too much. And that speaks to the dosages because the dosages on the bottle are not going to be the dosages in the pill. And that's not because the supplement manufacturers are trying to be duplicitous or sneaky. They're not lying to you. It's just they're following the law. And actually, the FDA does regulate supplements. And one of the laws that regulates supplements says that the dosage on the bottle has to match the dosage in the pill within a certain percentage at the expiration date of the bottle. And if you have an on-the-shelf product with a 2 to 3 year shelf life, the food scientists and chemists have to work very hard to figure out exactly how much melatonin overage do they need to put in the pill so that as it degrades over time, it hits the target at the expiration date. So what's typical in melatonin is about 30 to 50%. So if you just bought a bottle that just showed up on the shelf from the manufacturer and it still got a couple of years left on its shelf life, don't be surprised if the bottle says 5, but it really has 8 or 9, or yeah,
Is
because
there a
it
max
will.
out of the range that they can go to?
No, the law requires it to be at that dose at the expiration date. It is
Nothing
not
else
about the
required.
starting dose. So they have to calculate how much does the starting dose need to be, and that depends on the substrate. It depends on whether it's a gummy or a pill. It depends on how stable it is in the medium that it's in.
And where is there
And
typically more variation? Is it in the, I'm thinking of kids and melatonin, obviously eat the gummies, and
yeah,
there was a lot
gummies,
of
yeah,
research
I mean,
there.
gummies, there may be more variability. And also the timing becomes important too, because telling your body it's nighttime depends very much on what time of day it is. If you ingest something and you can absorb it quickly, then you can control the timing of when you tell your body it's nighttime. But the thing with gummies is, which is why I generally don't recommend them for melatonin in general over another method. Just that's what people like. But with gummies, you have to chew them and you absorb them, and then they're in the pectin, and then there's the sugar, and then like who knows when it's getting absorbed. Maybe it's right away, maybe it isn't. No one's really done pharmacokinetic studies and pharmacodynamic studies to show like when is it entering your bloodstream. But we know what happens with a pill, or even if you have a dissolved tablet. I love those because you can really control it then. But yeah, so this like all this stuff about dosages and timing and melatonin is just super tricky. And that's why like doubling the dose might not double, it doesn't double the effect. Melatonin isn't more is more. Sometimes more is less. Because it's you either hit the window and tell your body it's nighttime, or you give your body a lot and you tell your body it's nighttime in all capital letters and bigger font. The message got across either way. You don't need the bigger dose to get the same effect with melatonin.
So just I want to come back from a macro perspective for a second, and
Yeah.
just if you had to put percentages, like
Yeah.
each one of you weigh in on this, on how food and diet supplements impact overall sleep quality. Okay, so what we're saying here is there's lots of things like you could set your room up with nightshades and sound machines and all this other stuff. So now let's look at just percentages of impact. Okay, food and diet supplements to overall sleep quality. Let's start with you, Dr. Aaron. What would you say? If just the percentages.
Yeah, before going to your question, I want to add something to Dr. Grander about melatonin, because I think we are human and we like the most easiest way to cure everything. When I have insomnia, I want to go to a CVS pharmacy and take a melatonin without any prescription. But the point is that if the sleep deprivation or any other the sleep disturbances is acute, it can be helpful. But if it's chronic, I think we absolutely need to see a doctor. And for the melatonin, I think recent evidence shows that if those with MTNR1B allele, which is more than 50% of our population, carry at least one allele for the MTNR1B, which is the receptor for melatonin, and take melatonin for a long time, it can disturb their glucose metabolism, and they can show some levels of insulin sensitivity, insulin resistance. So it means that for a short time, maybe it's really good and it's really effective, I know, but for a long time, it doesn't maybe address the underlying mechanisms of the sleep disorder. If it's insomnia, maybe we need a real treatment rather than melatonin for a long time. And for a diet, I think for the melatonin, I think we need to provide our bodies with all of the things that it needs to produce melatonin. It means magnesium, vitamin B, and the tryptophan, because I think from the food, the most I think only tart cherry juice contain the most amount of melatonin in our other foods, but it's better that we we follow a healthy dietary patterns with sufficient amount of vitamin B's, magnesium, and tryptophan in a way that we can make our body ready each night to produce melatonin exactly on time.
So now I just, because I do want to, we only have 30 minutes left. I do want to get into this. So what would you say? And that's an important thing. And I want to get to all the other supplements that support melatonin and timing and everything else. But just quickly, what would you say on the amount of impact that food and dietary supplements have on overall sleep quality, percentage-wise?
Comparing the food versus melatonin supplements?
No, food and supplements versus all the other kinds of things like cognitive behavioral therapy, setting your home up in a certain way to improve sleep quality, getting routine. There are all kinds of things that are talked about.
There's a really important distinction I want
Yeah, tell me.
to make. There's a difference between sleep hygiene. There's a difference between sleep hygiene and behavioral sleep therapy. So hygiene, right? Everyone should brush their teeth every day, right? And it'll prevent problems, it'll fix problems, but you can't brush your way out of braces. Everyone should wash their hands. That's hygiene. If you're sick, you should wash your hands more. But washing your hands won't replace an antibiotic or antiviral or antifungal medication. It's not going to cure an infection. That's the difference between hygiene and treatment. Sleep hygiene is great. Everyone should do it. It will remove barriers to sleep. It will set you up for success. It will fix lots of small issues with your sleep. But if you have a sleep disorder, there is no sleep hygiene in the world that will fix insomnia. We use sleep hygiene as our placebo control in insomnia therapy trials because everyone thinks it's doing something, but it's not. If you have insomnia, if you don't have insomnia, sleep hygiene is great. If you do have insomnia, it's still often useful, but sleep hygiene doesn't fix an insomnia problem. And I get this in my clinic all the time. People showing up saying, oh, I tried everything. I'm like, yeah, you tried all the stuff. Like you tried brushing your way out of braces and it didn't work. Switching a toothbrush, trying new toothpaste, doing a different rinse, doing it at a different sink. None of that mattered because that wasn't your problem. But there are behavioral therapies for insomnia that are not sleep hygiene, that are actually treatment, to the point where they are recommended above any medications because they've actually, there's no medication on the market that has ever been on the market that has outperformed CBT for insomnia as a treatment.
Interesting. So I'm going to stick to my guns because I'm a journalist. What percentage would you say that food and dietary supplements have on the overall impact of sleep condition and sleep health?
So
all you're allowed to do is give me the percentage.
we're all scientists. It's all. I don't think you'll get a number from any of us that answer to that question.
I'm gonna say
100%.
I'm gonna say 30% of the impact of your sleep health. 30% of your impact of your sleep health is related to the food and your food and dietary supplements.
The reason we can't
guys disagree?
We can't say a number is because it depends on the person, it depends on the outcome, it depends on the situation, it depends on the type of food. If you're thinking about what type of research is being done, a single food, a whole diet, what is it that it's coming with? And then what's the comparison? Right? But if you want a number, let me just put a number there.
If I meet the two, okay, I'm gonna shut up then.
Yes. So we just have a paper that was accepted for publication last week. It's going to come out in a month maybe or so, where we're showing that in adults who could eat 5 servings of fruits and vegetables per day compared to none have 16% lower sleep fragmentation index. So reduced arousals, less disturbed sleep, with adopting the recommendations for fruits and vegetables compared to none. So that's quite relevant, 16% reduction. is quite important when you're thinking about this in the context of various supplements. And I do want to come back to the tryptophan. I know we talked about it a lot, but I think that it's important for the listeners to understand what tryptophan is and why we talk about it so much when we're talking about melatonin. As Dr. Grantner and Dr. Aram mentioned, it's a precursor for melatonin. But why diet is highly relevant here is that tryptophan is an amino acid, which means that it's a component of protein, but there's something special about this amino acid. It's called an essential amino acid. And that means that our body can't produce this amino acid. There are many other amino acids that we have that our bodies can produce from other substrates, but not tryptophan. So it must be obtained from foods entirely. And that's why, we make such a fuss over, diet related to sleep and the importance of tryptophan for that.
So you said 16% reduction by eating healthy fruits and vegetables, but I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna still lead this audience, and this audience, there's 200 to 300 people on the call today on this webinar. I'm telling them that 30% of your diet matters on your sleep health. Who disagrees with me?
Well, the chat's disabled, so they can't chime in either.
No, I'm asking. I'm going out there. I have a PhD.
To agree or disagree, because
You disagree.
I don't know enough to agree or disagree. I don't think. I think to be honest, okay.
Yeah.
I think there's a big gap between what we've been able to learn and the real questions about food and sleep that people have, like this. And I think that's because to do that work, to actually answer this question, it's a potentially answerable question. It's just a really hard question to get funding for.
And
it's a very important question.
Right.
Very important
But
question. But there's also
all the frustration about the lack of answers. It's not because we're not writing these grants. It's because to be able to do this work, it's that people need to recognize the importance of science funding, and that we need to be expanding funding for questions that actually matter for people's lives, that are related to their health. And the data doesn't exist, not because anyone's hiding it or because nobody cares. It's because it's not seen as high priority by funders right now.
So I'll ask you a question. When you work in sleep labs and sleep research, okay? When you have a potential participant, are you giving them are you getting a food diary from them? It's a yes or no response only. Yes.
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
Okay, so it's definitely up there in the top 10 things that are important when you're doing your work. Okay. And do you ask them if their food if what they've eaten that day, what their sleep, you try to connect their sleep to the foods that they ate that day?
Depending on the studies.
Yeah. Well, not study, but if you're yes. Okay, so clearly food and dietary supplements, absolutely.
Very important. Very important.
Very important.
Yeah.
But also your question has so many dimensions. It's very important to understand how complicated your question is, because you're not only really asking how much is a healthy diet going to help me, but also how much is taking out everything that can have a negative impact on my sleep will do. So, you have to talk about caffeine. When do you take caffeine during the day and how that influences your sleep? Alcohol consumption, how that influences your sleep? Refined sugars and added sugars in the diet and how that can have a negative impact on sleep. But then also how other foods and other nutrients can have a benefit on sleep. So taking out the adversarial foods and beverages and putting in the beneficial ones, those are all different things that can have an impact on sleep and make it hard to give a number.
So you're kind of teasing up two questions that I have for you. And
Yes.
One is related less to sleep disorders and more about disrupted sleep. And admittedly, it's a little selfish as a parent with 3 young children. It's rare that I get an uninterrupted night of sleep. So thinking of that, caregiving, shift work, stress, where people just go through periods of their life where their sleep is interrupted. Are there protective foods beyond tryptophan or supplements that they can take? Like I sometimes feel like my telomeres are just shrinking every time a child wakes me up. Like but I eat well, it was like, what can we
Yeah.
do to kind of protect ourselves when we're going through a period of time where
Rough sleep. That was
So
healing.
there's nothing you eat that's going to prevent your child from waking you up.
so
at
I should
night.
lock the door, is what you're
That's
saying.
just like, the facts of life, right?
Right.
But, how well you eat during the day can be useful in terms of resilience and how your what your metabolic responses to those sleep insults are going to be. So having a healthy diet is important for cardiometabolic health. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that. And so if you at least have a healthy diet, those sleep insults that may be transient in various periods of life may have, may have less impact than if you also had a poor diet and no exercise and no other, healthy lifestyle behaviors.
Sorry, Alexina, but for healing, okay, interrupted, disrupted sleep. There's the melatonin study, which is again one study that I haven't really researched it, and then I'm hoping someone disagrees with me or gives me a thumbs up, and then there's creatine, which I used to laugh at, and now I just ordered my pill, because I won't mix it with a drink. I just started taking creatine because of all the research on cognition and everything else, and it has specific properties in it that supposedly impact disrupted sleep. So I spent probably 30 hours organizing this event, and I want to make sure that at least I get that one thing out of that.
There's great data on amino acids at night and recovery. There's actually great animal and human work on that, more in the animal space than the human space. But yeah, no, the idea of amino acids at night. I think there's specifically data on creatine. I don't know, Dr. St. Ange. I know you probably know a little more about this than me.
Yeah, I think there are studies in athletes specifically with creatine. So sometimes, there's these special populations, where, you're looking at a specific supplement after an exercise bout. And so then you have to put in a lot of these conditions. Okay, it works in the context of this, but for the general population, what does it mean? And that's where, sometimes we don't have quite the level of detail that we would like to have.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Alexina, you had another question.
Well, I wanted to weigh in, and I'd love to hear from Armand as well about any of this.
Yeah, and I want to talk about maybe meal timing after disturbed sleep.
Meal timing and jet lag. Which
I'd
love to know. I'm flying to London in a week or two, and I'd love to know what
We're
to
getting
do about
selfish on our questions now.
Listen, I have to be selfish here.
That's what we get with being moderators. We can
I'm sure there's a lot of listeners
Yes,
who are traveling in the next couple of months over the summer vacations who will benefit from this too.
Yeah, because first we know, as Dr. Sanaj mentioned, sometimes we know that, for example, the next day I cannot sleep because of work, so we make our body ready for that with a good diet, maybe lower inflammation, because after a sleep deprivation we can observe some levels of low-grade inflammation in our body, so can make our body ready for that. But the next day, maybe the most important things is to start breakfast right after the sleep. Even if it's for example, we wake up later, early breakfast can re-anchor somehow our circadian rhythms, not our central circadian rhythm, but it can help our peripheral.
Yeah, what kind of breakfast, and is it psychological or is it biological?
I generally prefer, not generally speaking, or maybe scientifically speaking, a high protein breakfast with a complex carbohydrate, high GI kind of carbohydrate, a low GI carbohydrate, a complex type with a sufficient amount of protein and low fat, but around 30% of fat in a meal, but the good sources of fat like unsaturated fat it could be a good breakfast. But the point is that we need to have a small portion size of meals the day after, because we suffer from fatigue because of sleep deprived night, and high portion size of meals can try to make you more fatigued during a day. So a small portion size of meals, early breakfast after you wake up, can make you more ready for the next day.
Why would you're
So
going to crave a wait, say that again, Dr. Abbott. So you're going to want to have a large portion breakfast. Is that what you're saying? Did I get that right? Or
No, no, a small portion of
so
breakfast.
you should have
All
a
the
sleep.
meals should be a small portion size. You can increase the number of meals the next day, but the portion size is better to be small.
And this
To
also works with jet lag as
Yeah,
well. Is it the same concept? Is there any preparation for jet lag that you should do?
social jet lag, jet lag, you mean?
Jet lag.
Jet lag, it's the same. You can the small portion size of meals.
But is there any preparation prior to flying or traveling? Did anybody want to weigh in on what you should be doing or taking to?
Uh, on top of my head, I don't think there is any dietary recommendation that can make your body ready for jet lag when you travel. I don't know, around
No.
5 or
so
6 time zones.
so
Maybe
some
Dr. Sanaj can add something to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, some people like to start advancing or delaying their behaviors depending on the clock time where they will be. So starting to adjust your sleep to be closer to what you'll be when you get to your destination.
Yeah.
So some people could do that. I'd like to just, give personal, what I personally do, right? I don't usually change anything before I get to my destination, but when I do get to my destination, I make sure that I have, morning sunlight. I try to be physically active early in the day. I make my meal schedules match the meal schedules of the times that I will be at my destination, so that I'm not adding an extra meal because I'm flying in the middle of the night or I'm flying in the middle of the day that extends my day to like 30 hours instead of 24. I'm keeping the times where I'll be. So if I'm at, in New York City leaving at 6 a.m., but it's 3 a.m. in California, I'm not having breakfast yet. I'm waiting until it's 7 a.m. in California to have breakfast. And then I think that really helps to put your body in that mode of the timing of where you will be. Something else that I
Agreed.
wanted to
Yeah.
add to Dr. Arab's comment when he's talking about various nutrients to consume, right? Sometimes it gets difficult to know exactly what that translates to in terms of foods. When we're talking about higher protein, complex carbohydrates, I can think of wonderful breakfast ideas that, based on what Dr. Arab described in terms of nutrients, where you have, Greek yogurt with whole grain granola that has some chia seeds that provide omega-3 fatty acids, and whole grain oats that provide complex carbohydrates and fiber, and Greek yogurt that has some tryptophan and various that assists with the gut microbiome. Lots of fruits and vegetables that provide more fiber and that contribute to the carbohydrate content of good quality. And that's something that we need to stress, right? When we're talking about nutrients, we need to talk about high quality nutrients. We're not just talking about eat more carbohydrates, eat more protein, but eat higher quality carbohydrates, those things that are brown, not things that are white, right? And so brown rice, buckwheat, buckwheat groats, or whole grain oats, and not the white, very powdery, refined types that you should be focusing on.
Okay. And so the other thing, that I wanted to talk about, because we have about 10 minutes left. Okay. I've done it. Alice and I have done probably about 70 of these. This is probably the fastest one that we've ever had, because I can't. I think we need 10 parts of this, because I didn't realize that I had so many questions around sleep. And it's just interesting, because I could probably sit here all day with you guys. But I guess one of the things that I want to also talk about are some of the nutrients, right? Some of the and supplements that people talk about, right? So Alex, you can help me out if I miss one. But certainly omega-3s is one, and we can talk about that. Vitamin D, we touched upon that slightly.
We talked about unsaturated fats. This is something that Dr. Arab mentioned, unsaturated fats, right? So when we're talking about unsaturated fats, those are the fats that stay liquid at room temperature. Those are liquid oils. This is like olive oil, canola oil, safflower oil, avocado oil, things that provide, that stay liquid. Saturated fats, they stay hard, they stay solid at room temperature. Those are the types of fats that we want to stay clear of, because those are the types of fats that in our research has been shown to be associated with less deep sleep and more light sleep. And we want to get more deep sleep.
Want to get more to see. Okay, so I meet you, at a party, and we're there talking, and it's loud, and you want to impress this person. It's the head of the NIH, right? And and you got 15 seconds to he or she says to you, Doctor, I just want to sleep better. If you had to name two or three things that I should be doing, what are they that are food and diet related? What do I do? You got 15 seconds with the head of the NIH.
15 seconds, I would say to focus on plant-based foods. I'm sorry?
He or she's going to fund whatever you.
Right. So I'd say to focus on a whole diet rich in plant foods, higher in fruits and vegetables and whole grains, fiber, nuts, and seeds are also quite important for healthier sleep. I would also ask him or her how their sleep is at night. Maybe that can help to trigger how important sleep is.
So they want to know what supplement they should take. Yeah.
I would say stay clear of supplements, as that's my philosophy.
You would.
Yeah, I say, a whole diet is preferable, in my opinion, to dietary supplements, where you may overdo it on a specific nutrient that influences your absorption of another nutrient. And
I shouldn't take magnesium. I shouldn't take omega-3 fatty acids, DHA and EPA.
I would advocate for a diet that provides optimal amounts of these types of nutrients.
Yeah, Alexina,
we can finish this one, and then I have a question.
So Dr. Arab,
I think Dr. Arab has something to add to that
too.
Yeah, for the nutrients, because first of all, we need to assess participant or the patient whether there is any deficiency for any nutrients or not. If there is any deficiency, we need to supplement. If there is magnesium deficiency, zinc deficiency, vitamin D deficiency, or any vitamin B deficiency, we must do supplementation to address those deficiencies. But if there is no deficiencies, I think I'm fully agree with Dr. Sananj. We need to stick to the diet.
Should you get a blood test with panels to see whether they're lacking nutrients in their body, and then they need to supplement them or get them in their diet to go up to what levels, the correct levels. Is that, would everybody agree on that?
Yeah. And one thing that I would add is, if I had that 15 seconds, I would say, no. I'm here. I just have my video off for a couple of minutes. I would say that I would agree again that it's less about supplements than about the big picture. I mean, some people may benefit from some supplements or other, but I think if we want something that is broadly applicable, I would say I would have a part of this complete breakfast sort of approach of that. Not only are you talking about, but also alone is probably not going to fix sleep problems. If you're eating a healthy diet and you're doing other things that are going to make sleep worse, your sleep is still going to be problematic. I think healthy diet is part of this complete breakfast. It's part of the, having a healthy wind down routine, practicing good stimulus control, doing all of the things that we know improve sleep. And I think if you combine them all together, and getting enough activity during the day, getting bright morning light in the morning, improving your circadian amplitude, like all of these things, these are all things that are under people's control. And I think diet is an important part, and I think it can supplement and support that bigger picture.
I just feel like everybody when this is not a TikTok. With what you just said, which is brilliant. We put that on TikTok, we get 0 views. You know, we get the zero.
Splice
Sorry,
it right. You gotta
we
splice
get
it
0
right.
views on that because people are going like, really? We have to eat a healthy diet again? We've been hearing this for 30, 40, 50 years.
Well,
That's what's
nobody
gonna
likes
do
to be
it.
told to
Can't
eat their
sleep.
vegetables.
Can't sleep
And
or
so,
feel
like,
like
if we
it's-
could find a fun way to get people to eat their vegetables, so like maybe we
But
talk
maybe, you
a
know
little
what?
more.
Getting good sleep is going to get people to eat their fruits and vegetables, right? We've also
it
shown
helps.
that people who have good sleep at night make better choices
Yeah.
during the day. They tend to make better dietary choices also. So it's
and
part
when
of
we
this
talk about
cycle
diet-
where you get better sleep, helps you
Exactly.
make better choices to physical activity, to diet, to many other things. We know that sleep is instrumental for good decision making. Good decision making influences all aspects of life and all decisions that you make throughout the
that's
day,
why
including
it's
what you
not just
eat and
about
whether
the
you exercise it.
nutrients.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's not about what nutrients will improve your sleep. It's that it's also how by improving your sleep, you can improve your nutrients. Because
All right, so we have
exactly
we have
like
five,
she
we have
said,
5 minutes left. We have 5 minutes left.
that I think is
Summarize
probably
some
the
of
most important
points that,
take
like,
home.
if we had to make a TikTok video, the 5 of us, some of our points that we come up with. One is that for jet lag, have a small portion, meal, and breakfast is going to be critical. And it should have at least 30% protein in it and be mostly unsaturated, unsaturated fat proteins, right? And then we want to make sure that we have our levels checked for vitamins like omega-3s, magnesium, and other things in our body to make sure that we are not deficient, because deficiency is probably, with deficient nutrients in our body, we're more than likely to it could impact our sleep, and that's an easy fix or somewhat easy fix.
So omega-6 is not something that's routinely measured. Routinely measured, vitamin D is routinely measured, and that would be relevant. Magnesium could be measured, and that could be relevant. Selenium is another nutrient that's been associated with selenium deficiencies being associated with sleep deficiencies, and overcoming this deficiency improves sleep. And iron also relevant, where we're talking about restless leg syndrome. Iron.
Yes.
And that's an important mineral because a lot of women are low in iron, and that's an important mineral to make sure that we have sufficient levels of in terms of some sleep difficulties and sleep disorders, namely restless leg.
Yeah, some cases of restless leg syndrome are caused by low iron.
If we have 3 minutes, can I just really quickly, I want
go ahead.
one sentence from each of you on these rapid fires. I want to hear your personal professional opinions on the following 3, or maybe 4. Refined sugar in like a sentence, your rule.
Don't do it.
I can ask.
More disrupted sleep at night.
No, what'd you say? Not at night?
More disrupted sleep leads to more disrupted sleep at night. So cut them out.
Next, Alcina.
Alcohol.
Alcohol is probably the most used. It's probably the most used sleep drug in the world, but it's not a good one. It can help you fall asleep faster, but it will tend to make your sleep shallower, choppier, and have more awakenings and be less refreshing.
Quickly, is there anything you can do to overcome that? If you're drinking at night, what can you do to overcome the interruptions that alcohol makes? If we just say this,
we'll get and earlier.
Earlier in the day, like during the work day, are you saying?
Well, not during the work.
You're encouraging people to drink
the alcohol
don't overdo
all out
it,
of your
basically.
system by the time.
The only thing you can do is not overdo it. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, one or two drinks for most people is not going to have a big effect. Some people are sensitive enough that it will, but for most people, a glass of wine at dinner is not the problem.
Anything that could overcome you're going to sleep. You had too many. Dr. Rob, what is there anything that you would suggest
For alcohol?
No,
I don't have any suggestion.
Accept your
During
fate
late
and sleep better tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Learn from your mistake the next day.
That's all right. We can end there. That seems like a good place.
Right. So by the way, I want to thank all of you for doing this. And I know you guys have tremendously busy schedules. I want to go out publicly and ask you if you would come back on again, because I think that we didn't cover, like you saw, I generally get most of my answers. I got almost a tenth of them. So, which is not typical for me and Alexina. We're
And
usually
no fault of yours, because it's just, there's so much to
no,
cover.
no,
here.
it's no
Y'all
fault
are
of mine,
amazing.
but I always take responsibility. But thank you so much for coming. I think that these are important topics. Everything we do is always free for the public, and we try to, have some impact with our public. And a final note, as a nonprofit, everything we do is free and open, and we value the work, and we hope you'll, keep coming to us and read our newsletter, which is done every week on Tuesdays. It's a research and news digest. We have 175,000 in audience now, and it's around the world. We have a lot of people overseas that are in Australia that will be watching this tape. So thank you again. And remember this, I'll leave you with this after thanking my guests profusely, that while diet has the potential to cause or to prevent disease, it also has the capability of treating disease and building, maintaining, and restoring health. So let's all make sure that we do have a good diet with supplements. That's TBD, to be determined. And we'll come back with that. And thank you again. And thanks, Alexina, for co-hosting. It's always a pleasure when I start my morning off working with you. So Alexina and I used to work together every day, and now we barely get to work with each other. So thanks, and have a wonderful day and a wonderful summer.
Thank
You
you.
were a
Thank you.
wonderful host.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for having us.
Thank you.
All right, take care, everybody.
Bye.